But in the end of the day, it's all business though. It's kind of cool.
They're like a liger. Hey, you guys want to rap? I don't know if they want to rap. Anyway, that's my only Napoleon Dynamite reference on this whole tour. So the reason why we all use mules here exclusively for the buggy rides is because they are smarter, stronger, more sure-footed, more even-tempered, and most importantly, more durable in the heat than either of his parents. Much like myself. Come on. Ha. All right, we are rolling through the French Quarter of New Orleans. This is the home of colonial New Orleans, where the city was founded in 1718 by Jean-Baptiste Le Moyne Bienville. And Jean-Baptiste was an adventurer who worked for the Mississippi Holding Company, which was a private bank that was selling shares in all the gold mines, silver mines, and pearl fields that they were certain abounded in the wilds of the Louisiana Territory. Well, if y'all know anything about Louisiana, then you know that there are no gold mines, no silver mines, no pearl fields anywhere around this place.
Oh God,
and once that became abundantly clear, there was a run on the Mississippi Holding Company that nearly tanked the French economy at the time. So basically, New Orleans was founded on a pyramid scheme. And it's been all downhill ever since, y'all.
Oh, no.
So, at the end of the 7-year war between France, England, and Spain, the King of France gave the colony in New Orleans to the King of Spain, and we became a Spanish colony. And even though we were a Spanish colony, most of the people that lived here continued to be French and French-speaking. About 25 years after becoming Spanish, we had the first of two big fires.
I guess it's where the girls hang out at.
The first fire is known as the Good Friday Fire.
Yeah.
Because it happened on Good Friday. And because that is a holy day, the Catholic Church would not allow the ringing of bells. So the whole city burned to the ground because we couldn't warn anyone about the ongoing fire. Hot on the heels of that fire, pun intended, some kids were playing with flint and steel over here on Royal Street. Started fire number 2, burned the city down all over again. So most of what you see around you was built by the Spanish, not by the French, and they built everything out of bricks, stucco, and cast iron because they were tired of everything burning to the ground. So we have indeed had our share of fires here in New Orleans, and for as many fires as we've probably had 3 times as many floods. And the most famous flood in recent history is, of course, Katrina. Katrina took place in August 2005. One of the many nicknames for New Orleans is the Crescent City, because we're built into the bend of the Mississippi River in the shape of a crescent. But we're also kind of shaped like a half bowl. And we're at the top of the tip of the half bowl here inside the French Quarter. Then the city slopes down and away from the river towards neighborhoods like Central City. So, whereas we got no water at all here inside the quarter during Katrina, the Central City neighborhood got well over 20 feet. And to give you guys kind of a visual, 20 feet's over the top of these railings. Third in New Orleans is under 20 feet of water.
Oh.
Hi. We talked about the fires and we talked about the floods. And in keeping with our biblical theme, we will talk about the plagues. There was the Spanish flu epidemic of 1918, which claimed 3,500 New Orleanian lives in 3 weeks. Worse than that were the periodic yellow fever outbreaks of the 1800s. At one point, yellow fever was so deadly, and people were dying so fast that the city couldn't keep up with burying all of the bodies. So to keep the bodies preserved and ready for funeral, New Orleans began to store them inside of a giant ice house. And that ice house was located right here, where Hotel Provincial stands today. And this is the site of the very first morgue in the city of New Orleans. And as far as I'm aware, they did continue to sell the ice. So if your cocktail tastes a little funny, that is the original Bloody Mary, y'all. This is the Ursuline Convent, and this is the oldest building, not just here in New Orleans, but in the entire Mississippi Valley. The first convent that was built here was built in 1732. That burned down in 1744, and they rebuilt it in 1751.
They all know they're going to stop right here.
So that's the main building here. This was the convent.
Another Mardi Gras ride of passage.
Yeah. That was that. Yeah.
Yes, that's true. Otherwise,
They're actually all mules. No horses in the French Quarter.
I watched.
So this is the main building here. That was the convent. Roughly 100 years after they rebuilt the convent, New Orleans was declared the archdiocese for the southern part of the United States, and the archbishop took this over for his offices, and all of the nuns were moved downriver into a newer and bigger convent. That's when they added on St. Mary's Chapel. That is the chapel of the archbishop, and it is 100 years newer than the convent. When it was still only a convent, the nuns were remarkably progressive for their time. They started one of the first hospitals in the city because they believed in tending to the body as much as they believed in tending to the soul. And they also started one of the first schools in the city, and it was a school for girls. So by the 1800s, most of the people in New Orleans that knew how to read, write, and do math were women. And they made no distinction based on economic standing or ethnic heritage. So a lot of young women of color got an opportunity to learn how to read, write, and do math here as well, which is a pretty remarkable thing for 1700s Louisiana. So this here is the Beauregard Kai's house, named for General P.T. Beauregard, who was a Confederate general in the Civil War, famous for winning the very first battle in the Civil War at Fort Sumner. He only lived in that house for like a year and a half, maybe 2 years, but they went ahead and named it after him anyways. It's the most famous occupant because marketing has always been a thing.
Yeah.
So coming up here on the right, these are what they call Federalist or American style homes. These are really popular uptown in the Garden District. So they're the only ones like this you're going to see here inside the French Quarter. They started building this style of home in the 1830s, and they continued all the way through to the end of the Civil War. And the big American innovation is they pushed them back off the street and you got a front porch and a front yard. Because if you look to our left, you can see the Spanish built everything flush to the sidewalk. And with the Spanish, you get galleries and balconies, but you don't get a front porch or a front yard. Because the Spanish
John boat
Yeah, yeah.
on the roof rack.
Yeah.
So for the Spanish, this is very much like the back of the house, and everything's built facing in to overlook the courtyard. Whereas Americans built everything facing out to overlook the street. So it's really a difference in perspective or worldview. So at the end of the 1700s, there were roughly 5,000 people living in the colony of New Orleans. Then there was a big revolution on the island of Haiti. And a lot of the French colonists and some of the richer Haitians fled here to New Orleans as the next closest French-speaking colony. So we tripled in size from 5,000 to 15,000 people in like a year and a half. And that's when we started getting these kind of homes. These are what they call a Creole home or a Creole cottage.
Yeah, yeah. You see that a lot in like St. Croix and the Creole, the Caribbean theme as well.
It was also around that time we started taking on a more Caribbean vibe here in New Orleans. One of my favorite descriptions.
We have
for the
shutters
city
like that on
is
the
we're
wall.
not so
I was
much-
in the Caribbean.
Hey!
Yeah, there's shutters to protect from the
Happy
storms.
Mardi Gras,
We
y'all.
closed all our shutters when the storms came.
Great. Oh, thank you guys. Thank you. You guys having a good time? Can't beat this weather. Y'all see these spikes here on the poles? Those are called Romeo spikes, and those were put there to help prevent young men from visiting young ladies in the middle of the night. They say you may go up to Romeo, but you're coming down to Juliet. All right, so we are rolling down Barrack Street, y'all. Barrack Street is named for the old army barracks, which is what these are right here. We didn't really get a police force here in New Orleans until like the mid-1800s. So both the French and the Spanish kept a little bit of an army here to keep some kind of order in this particularly crazy town. But we didn't necessarily warrant the best of the best. More often than not, we got the worst of the worst. And they tended to be drunks and thieves and louts themselves. And they'd go around in little gangs and beat on people and take their stuff. So not a whole lot's changed here in New Orleans.
Yeah.
So this is a great example of what they call a shotgun home. Shotgun homes are so called because if you open the front door and the back door at the same time and fire a shotgun, it's gonna go clean on through to the other side. Yeah, I don't go to your job and kick the dick out of your mouth, do I? Sorry guys, apologize.
That's okay. Yeah, it's funny.
The kids don't get it.
Yeah.
So yeah, shotgun homes, and they sorry, I shouldn't talk that way for the children. I apologize. They're built like a long hallway, and the reason why they built them like that is because of how hot it gets here in New Orleans. You know, in the old days, they didn't have no such thing as air conditioning or electric fans. And in the dead of summer, New Orleans will get up to 105, 106 every single day with 90% humidity. It's disgusting. It's like walking around inside somebody's mouth with bad breath and a fever. So this house came on the market a little while ago, and I saw the real estate agent standing out in front, and I said, "How much are you asking for this house?" And he said, $2.75 million. So if anybody's looking for a little getaway, this is my favorite of these.
Yeah.
I love this courtyard here. This one's amazing. So this White House here, this is the old Clay Shaw house. Clay Shaw was the only man ever put on trial for the assassination of John F. Kennedy. If you ever watch the JFK film by Oliver Stone, Tommy Lee Jones plays Clay Shaw. Y'all see this big gray house right here? That is the Lalaurie Mansion, and that is considered the most haunted house in all of New Orleans. This house was built in the 1830s by one Delphine Lalaurie, and she had it built along with her third husband, using the money from her two previous husbands. And by all accounts, she was a debutante. She liked to party and have a good time. And one night while they were throwing a party, a fire broke out, and they quickly went around and put out the fire. And they started looking for where it started, and when they went into the kitchen, they found a woman chained to a stove. And they asked her, they said, "Did you start the fire?" And she said, "Yes, I did." And they're like, "Well, why would you start a fire?" And she said, "Because I was told by Madame Lalaurie that at the end of this party, I was getting sent up to the 3rd floor. And once you get sent up to the 3rd floor, you never come back." Well, now everybody wants to know what the heck is going on the 3rd floor. So the whole party marches upstairs. And what they found was absolutely heinous. Delphine Lalaurie and her third husband had been hurting their slaves up there. And we're going to keep it PG. But suffice it to say, it was incredibly brutal. So obviously, justifiably, the people of New Orleans were very upset. She's gone completely insane. And so word's going around, and after about 3 days, a crowd of people starts to form on the corner, and they're going to put an end to Delphine Lalaurie. Well, Delphine was no slouch. She knew which way the wind was blowing, so she quickly hitched up her carriage, busted through the gates, crashed through that crowd of people, and made her way down to the river, where she hopped on a boat, sailed to France, and disappeared forever. Never being prosecuted for her crime. Today, she is considered one of America's first serial killers. And if anybody ever happens to watch the TV show American Horror Story, Kathy Bates plays her in the 3rd season.
Delphine Lalaurie.
Now, the second most famous person to have lived in that house is, of course, Nicolas Cage. Nicolas Cage bought that house in the early 2000s, and he had it for like 6 years until the IRS came and took it away from him. He claims that that house is so creepy he could only sleep in it for one single night, and after that he had to rent another house around the corner for a place to sleep. He also claims that ever since he bought that house, he has suffered from the lollery curse, and his career has taken a nosedive. Which could be true. Or it could have been the drugs, the alcohol, and the poor life choices. If anybody's a fan of Elvis Presley, this peach and greenhouse right here is the house they used in the movie King Creole. Definitely my favorite of Elvis's movies. Certainly the one with the best soundtrack. Here on the right is Homer Plessy Elementary School. This is one of the oldest schools in the city. I had a guy on my carriage on Christmas Eve tell me about how his grandfather went there in 1901. And it was not a new school then. So this here is the old Rufino's Bakery. Opened in 1907, closed in 1923 when Mr. Rufino died. And his kids sold the building and moved the bakery over onto St. Bernard Avenue and renamed it United Bakery. But as legend has it, that was the spot where the muffaletta was invented, at the Rufino Bakery.
Look at the big ship going through.
Oh, got like a barge or something?
I think it's the fleet.
Oh, yeah, it's a navy. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Oh, cool.
That's a big old boat.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Oh, another.
That's
Oh,
a
there
train.
goes the train, yeah.
Yeah, training.
That'd be a long, slow boat. French quarter to jam and lazy I was like, why would you do that? Oh no, close the
Oh, they gotta stay on in there.
Yeah. The restaurants are so slow this time.
Yeah. I used to be so far away from like all the hustle and bustle or something. Oh, there's that restaurant where he's like half off. Oh, that's the same guy. He's half off guy.
Is it?
Or that guy who's trying to get it.
Oh, yeah, we passed it. Yeah. You like your shark hat.
Hey.